Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Now, cricket madness is about to reach fever pitch in the coming months as we draw closer to the 2023 Men's World Cup. And naturally, where there's a crowd, there will be brands. One of the first brands to lead the charge is Mastercard, that recently signed on as a partner for international cricket body, the ICC. To know more, we're in conversation today with Raja Rajamanar, the Global Chief Marketing and Communications Officer and President of Healthcare Business at Mastercard. How can a brand do justice to a sports sponsorship? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Raja Rajamanar. Hi Raja, welcome to Melt.
Thank you very much.
So let's start by talking about the obvious thing, sponsorship and cricket. Now, Mastercard's decision to take over as ICC's global sponsor, how much does that have to do with the World Cup being played in India?
I would say a lot, actually, because when the World Cup is played in India, the audiences that you manage to reach and in an area where they're very passionate about is truly, truly incredible. So it's a rare opportunity and therefore we jumped on the bandwagon.
And I see you have the actual World Cup sitting here right behind you. So what can your customers expect from Mastercard in this World Cup?
So there are a couple of things. One is for all Mastercard cardholders, there is going to be a pre-sale of tickets available. So therefore, they will get a day before the real public gets it. So that's one big benefit we have. There is a 20% off on all the merchandise that they buy from the web stores of ICC. That's a second. Then we got a series of priceless experiences that we are curating. For example, there'll be meet and greet with some of the cricketing legends. There would be signed merchandise. They would be invited behind the boundary in front of the perimeter and spend some time there at the opening or the closing ceremonies. There'll be special seats that will be there for Mastercard cardholders, a very limited number of them. And then they'll be actually able to view the match from those vantage positions. So we are actually going and pulling all stops out to make sure that we curate experiences that are truly memorable and people will actually cherish them.
Now, this global sponsorship comes right after a stint that Mastercard had as sponsor of the BCCI Indian sponsorship. What have been the brand's learnings from the Indian sponsorship stint?
So I think it has been a very, very good experience for us. So first and foremost, and I keep sort of mentioning that cricket is a religion in India, more than anywhere else, clearly. The whole thing is, how do you as a brand connect with consumers in a meaningful way, in a way that resonates with them, in a way that builds your brand, and in a way that drives your business? At the end of the day, we look at what is the investment behind any activity that we do and what returns we are getting out of that. So ROI is something which we always measure. And we found that from the cricket point of view, this is like an incredible space, first and foremost from the attractiveness point of view. The second thing is the price tag is not small. So given that the price tag is relatively high, we have to make sure that we're getting the value out of the amount of money that we have to pay. And third, it is not just slapping our brand or brand name here and there, but to actually convert it into true meaningful experiences. We had lots of learnings as to what works, what does not work, and how do you really take those things which work forward and avoid those which did not do that well for us. Because always in any portfolio of experiences that you're curating, there are some which work better than the other. So we have to make those choices. So we have tons of learnings from them, and it's been a great experience for us.
And how exactly do you measure the ROI that you were talking about?
Oh, in fact, this is where I guess my background in a bank for 15 years comes in very handy. And we are very quantitative as well. So what we try to do is we look at three different dimensions: the dimension of the brand, the dimension of the business, and the dimension of competitive advantage. On each one of these areas, we have KPIs or key performance indices that we actually have. And we have proprietary methodologies that we have diligently built over the years. And that's what we actually check out. So is it making a difference to our brand? Is it increasing the brand affinity amongst consumers? Is it driving and fueling our business, or is it just about flashy branding? Mm-hmm. And thirdly, is it giving us any competitive advantage? And all these are quantified and clearly measured in a credible fashion. And that's how we actually come to the ROI.
Okay.
Value in cricket is absolutely steep, but so is the pricing. So from my perspective, that's exactly what we also measure. Are we getting the right value for the price tag that we pay? And the answer is yes, and therefore we go for it. So what I would say is cricket is well valued. It's not overpriced.
Now, other than cricket, Mastercard associates itself with several sports. What is your philosophy behind your sports associations?
So what we do is, always it's not only just sports, but we have 9 different passion categories. So whether it is culinary, whether it is travel, whether it is shopping, music. So we have 10 in all. And in each one of these areas, our whole objective is to create and curate experiences that money cannot buy, but you can get them if you have a Mastercard on the one hand. And number 2, this is a brand which supports your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, if you have sports, the way sports really survive and thrive is when they have robust sponsorships. So consumers see if their favorite sport is being actually supported and promoted by the brand. And if so, their affinity for the brand hopefully will go up. So that's the brand managers or the brand person's, hypothesis. And the hypothesis gets pretty validated most of the times. So when you look at sports, it's almost like an ocean. You have got a ton of different types of sports. Some sports are more relevant in some countries than in other countries. So what we have done is we mapped the entire world in terms of sports. And we said, where does it make sense for us to participate? We want scale in terms of the reach. We want the return in terms of our investment. We want to have an ability to move the needle in terms of how consumers' perceptions and associations with our brand change and how the business is aided or not, and does it give us any competitive advantage and a leg up over our competitors. So when you look at all this in sports, like the philosophy and the principles are the same. Whether it is golf. Golf, we are one of the biggest sponsors of golf globally. We sponsor British Open, we have sponsored the Arnold Palmer Invitational and so on. We are one of the bigger sponsors in tennis. We sponsor French Open tennis, we have sponsored Australian Open tennis and so on. For MLB, we're one of the top sponsors, Major League Baseball. We're into ice hockey, we're into skiing with Kitzbühel. So area by area we take and try to understand from a consumer's point of view, what is it that drives them? And what is it that we as a brand can play a role in a native fashion? Like, for example, if you look at something like esports, which is one of the fastest growing areas, if you are not really native and if you are not sensitive enough to how the consumer's feelings are, there'll be organ rejection in a minute. So you have to be very careful how you show up. It cannot be a crass commercialism. It has to be truly passion-driven. And that's why we take our time to evaluate. And once we evaluate, once we get in, we are all in.
So are you saying that the gaming and esport audience is significantly different from the physical sports audience in the way they view brands and associations?
Quite a bit. So in fact, what you see is there is a certain amount of rebelliousness in some of the audiences when it comes to esport. I would not say exactly counterculture, but they are different and they have got very strong opinions and passions. And they're committed to that sport pretty significantly, and they're all tech savvy in many ways. And so what you see is that this is something which a brand cannot just jump into and show their brand or do some kind of a promotion, because the way these people can be ruthless in terms of rejecting the brands can be very painful. So we were very, very cautious. We tested the waters very carefully. And then we went with a sponsorship of League of Legends. We're the first global brand to have jumped onto the esports bandwagon. And we went in and we had brilliant partnership with Riot Games. And together with their insights, we started working on this whole sponsorship. And we found it to be hugely successful. Now we have actually, for example, co-branded cards, or what we call as passion cards, around League of Legends in more than 11 countries around the world, and it's expanding. And again, we curate experience in that space and so on and so forth. And it was so successful for us. Now we have gone to the world's 3rd largest esport, which is e-game, which is Valorant. So we have entered into sponsorship of Valorant. So now we got number 1 and number 3 with us. So we are deepening our presence and penetration into the esports category. And so that's how we're going about it.
Now let's move on from sports to the other big marketing buzzword these days: artificial intelligence, Web3, and the way the digital landscape is evolving. Now, you said that in previous interviews that AI should be viewed as augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence.
Correct.
Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Yeah. See, artificial intelligence seems like a substitute to the real intelligence, right? And what I say is, yes, AI has got the ability to be autonomous. But we don't want AI to become a purely autonomous intelligence and take over the world. But what we are needing to do is to really have a fantastic human and the artificial intelligence interaction in a way that enhances the human performance and takes it to a different level and a different dimension. So I call it as augmenting the real intelligence as opposed to substituting it. So when you call artificial, it's a little distant from the reality. That's one part of it. Second, what I have seen is even within the world of marketing itself, every single process and every single aspect of the ecosystem in the marketing world is actually deeply, deeply affected in a positive way by AI. Whether it is consumer insights, whether it is creating ads, whether it is even briefing your agencies, social media content, digital marketing. In fact, we have created a complete digital marketing engine end-to-end. We started it in Singapore, but it's now being rolled out globally, which takes the entire marketing campaign creation and management to a different level. There is a lot of automation, but it's all driven by AI. And the kind of productivity we are seeing is like 4 to 8 times that of what we would get compared to a previously optimized digital campaign. So that's like incredibly valuable to us in terms of both the economics that we have for our marketing investment that we make, plus also taking things to a different level by way of effectiveness. So I feel very good about it. And I see augmented intelligence is something which we have to do. But if I can just add one point is it is different from generative AI. Generative AI is what now people are referring to as AI, but there has been AI for the last several years that companies have been using. And at Mastercard, we have been doing it for more than 10 years, deploying AI. And this digital engine itself, we created more than 5 years back. So generative AI is going to take this to a completely whole new different level. And that's exciting.
Speaking of technology, at Mastercard, are you early adopters or do you wait till a technology reaches critical mass before you start experimenting or commercially playing around with it?
No. In fact, what we do is we try to experiment very, very much in the nascent stages of any new technology. Like, for example, augmented reality. I remember about 7 years back, we were experimenting with augmented reality 7 years back, before it even sort of came into the common vernacular. Even now it is sort of taking root. But we have been experimenting. We dip our toes in the water. We take a small percentage of our total marketing budget and use it for innovative programs of this sorts. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at metaverse again, a lot of people have said metaverse is a huge thing. There was a hype. And then after that, there is a lull and there's, oh, metaverse is going away. Now, we don't follow those kind of ups and downs.
The Gartner hype cycle, as it were.
Exactly. So what we actually do is to try and figure out is there substance. So metaverse, for example, we are able to really leverage brilliantly, even if I have to say it myself, for curating experiences again, which we call priceless experiences. Like, for example, Grammy Awards, we are actually curating virtual Grammy experiences for our customers from around the world. And so those kind of things are very valuable with a technology like metaverse. If I didn't have metaverse, I would not be able to do those.
So Raja, you're a big proponent of multisensorial experiences. Are you not? A sonic identity, a themed restaurant experiences, and like you spoke about the Grammys. Is there a fundamental philosophical idea that ties all these multisensorial marketing experiences together?
You'd better do that, right? So look at it this way. What is a sense from a human being point of view? Most of the human beings are blessed with 5 senses. Each sense is a mechanism through which the human brain is getting information, processes it, and then it thinks about it, or it feels about it, or it acts based on it. So, and we have blessed with 5 senses, as I said, by and large, but marketers typically have relied on the audio and the video part of it. Very rarely the other 3 senses. Mm-hmm. And that's a missed opportunity. Now, if you look at just purely the video, what happens is, on an average, a consumer is bombarded by more than 10,000 commercial messages every single day. Mm-hmm. There are estimates from 3,000 all the way to 10,000. Even at 3,000, assuming on the lower side, it is still a humongous amount of clutter. Exactly. And you have to, as a brand, stand out of that clutter, cut through it, make an impact. And what's also sort of aggravating the situation is consumers' span of attention is shrinking. So now it is less than 8 seconds. So lesser span of attention, 3,000 commercial messages vying for their attention. Mm-hmm. It's becoming less and less effective. And we don't understand fully the science of how visuals are absorbed by the brain. So, for example, when we did this research, what I found is that uh, most of the brands are using words, either spoken or written, to communicate. Spoken, of course, they are using the audio. But the point is, human brain is best wired to absorb information that is visually symbolic, which means symbols. They like symbols and pictures, and it's an old adage which says a picture is worth 1,000 words. But as marketers, we have not taken advantage of it. So what we did, for example, at Mastercard is we dropped our name Mastercard from our logo and just have those two interlocking red and yellow circles. And believe it or not, the brand awareness, the brand perception, the brand predisposition, the evaluation of the brand as being contemporary, modern, sophisticated, etc., has taken a significant jump up for the better. So much so now, we are one of the top 10 brands in the world. Our budgets are nowhere near the top 100 brands in the world, probably. But then the effectiveness is so high because of these kind of things that we're doing, optimizing visuals and leveraging audio. Why is it that brands don't have a brand in an audio format? So we pioneered the Sonic brand at a 10-layer Sonic architecture, with a 10-layer Sonic architecture, and started creating. So we already became the world's #1 audio brand for 4 years in the running. And now we're also getting into the other senses. So we started restaurants to engage the sense of taste. We have launched fragrances for the smell. And then we have also launched cards for the blind people, which we call Touch Card, which is leveraging a different sense. So what we are trying to do is bring all these and try to reach consumers' hearts and minds through all their 5 senses. And that's proving to be extremely valuable to us.
How controversial was the decision to drop the Mastercard name and just use the twin circle logo?
I still have scars on my back.
I imagine that must have taken some convincing.
Absolutely.
To convince the board and the management to say that this is the way to go.
Absolutely. So, in fact, when I had walked into my CEO's office at the time, Ajay Banga was my boss, and he was the CEO of Mastercard. So the first glance I got was like I had multiple heads. Or what are you even talking about? But he's a brilliant marketer himself. So he saw the sense and he said, makes a lot of sense. Then we went to the board, presented it, and then it was all approved. But it was not an easy process, because just imagine you're telling your boss, saying that, hey, you know what, I got a brilliant idea this morning.
Building this brand up, we're going to
now we'll drop our name from our logo. That's a big thing. And not too many brands are there who have the courage to do it, and successfully so. And many brands cannot even do it given how their logo design is, unless they go for a complete revamp or refresh. So that way, this was a very tough decision, but one of the best decisions we have ever taken.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the macro climate in the US and around the world. In fact, the word is inflation. Has this altered consumer spending patterns, and do you think there'll be a long-term hangover of this?
See, if I can accurately predict it, I'll get the Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Economics Prize, maybe.
You could ask your ex-boss, Ajay Banga.
Now I should ask him, indeed. So, but the reality is, there are multiple things that are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, unemployment typically tends to be one of the biggest dampers, both of the sentiment as well as the actual behavior in terms of spending and so on. But when people are also seeing inflation, which is the second factor, they tend to be more cautious. And this is a different socioeconomic categories. So if you look, for example, in the affluent categories, the impact of inflation doesn't seem to have dampened the demand in any significant way. So you're seeing for example, travel going on, phenomenal amount of travel. Try to get tickets on any airline, try to get hotel rooms, etc. They're all going very full. And it's doing extremely well. So that's one kind of a thing. Luxury goods, they are doing extremely well. So there are pockets where things are doing very well. When you look at mass segments or mass markets, that's where actually there's a little bit of a rationalization. And the basket of consumption is slightly shifting. They're being more prudent. They're being more cautious, as you can only expect. And in some cases, the total consumption of the basket might be the same in terms of value, but the quantity might have been rationalized because they don't want to exceed the value. So there are lots of dynamics like this happening. And the reality is, in terms of how quickly are we able to pull this inflation back and tamper it off. And if that happens, I think, markets will come back roaring. But actually already, if you see, the consumer consumption has still been not too bad at all.
Okay, there's an old saying that says, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Okay.
In this economic climate, What opportunities do you see at Mastercard to help its customers out, for instance?
First and foremost, from a mindset and a philosophy perspective, you don't want to be exploitative. You're absolutely right. When is there a crisis, there are opportunities, but opportunities can be exploitative or opportunities can be to serve. If you try to be exploitative, you'll definitely get short-term gain. But consumers are not,
They'll remember.
They will remember.
They'll
They will
remember
see
that.
through you, right? Now, this is one part of it. Now, and I keep saying there are times when you want to sell, there are times when you want to serve. Crisis is a time when you serve, number one. Number two, look at it that the serving is not for social media correctness or political correctness or to provide sound bites for your CEO. They have to be genuine and authentic. And I'll give you one example. If you look at the war in Ukraine, there are literally now hundreds of thousands of people who are migrating out of Ukraine and they were coming into Poland. And all of them descend on Warsaw. And Poland has been welcoming them for humanitarian reasons. And when they're coming in, it's putting incredible amount of stress on their system, infrastructure, totally. So we said, is this something that we can do, leveraging our platforms? And we came up with something called Where to Settle. It's a small app. So if you're a Ukrainian refugee, you go onto it and then say, where do I settle in Poland? It'll tell you there are so many other cities beyond Warsaw that you need to be aware of. Mm-hmm. Here are the places where there are job opportunities for your profile because they just fill in a small profile. Here are the job opportunities. Here are the income levels that you get. Here is the cost of living. If you have children, this is the quality of schools. This is how things, in terms of overall society-wise, how it is. When we did it, you should have seen the kind of response. It was very, very relevant to them. It was truly making a difference to them. And the government of Poland has actually adopted it literally and supported it wholeheartedly. And that's now become one of the key platforms for these immigrants who are coming into, or refugees who are coming into Poland. So we have to take opportunities like this to see how we can serve. Now, I always say that if you follow your purpose, profits will eventually follow. They may not happen instantaneously, but eventually you'll win.
Let me bring this interview to an end with a personal question, Raja. Apart from all the brands that you manage, you are something of a brand yourself. In fact, you will be inducted into the American Marketing Association's Hall of Fame later this year. Right? What is your secret sauce? What can other marketers learn from you?
See, I would not be preposterous enough to say that other marketers have to learn from me. But what I have found things that work for me. So first and foremost is be completely truthful and transparent. You have nothing to hide. Like, for example, within the chief marketing officers community, sometimes there is a feeling that if you open your secret closet a little too much, the CFOs will come take the money away, or your budgets will be cut, or whatever it is. The key thing is, as a CMO, your role is not to just manage the function, but you're a senior leader of the company. So put on the company hat first. Partner closely with your CEO, with your other C-suite colleagues, whether it is a CFO or this chief information officer, chief HR officer, because you need to really come together as a team. When you do that, your life becomes very easy because you're all co-creating things, you're co-owning things, and momentum is there. So you don't start fighting a lot of bureaucracy internally because everyone is already pre-sold and they've been a part of the whole process. That's number one. The second thing I also always find is that transparency is the best policy. So be completely transparent. So don't hide your numbers. And in fact, I have got a CFO who is residing within marketing, who has dual reporting into the CFO of the company and to me. So this person, so my CFO has got total access into everything that we are doing, and we are accounting every single dollar that we are spending. That helps quite a lot, number two. Number three, the world is changing so dramatically. We talked about emerging technologies. So now put yourself as a CMO. If we don't understand what these emerging technologies are, you cannot come up with possibilities or ideas or thoughts of how you're going to leverage them effectively. Learning is going to be critical because a lot of things that have happened yesterday are not even relevant today. In fact, my whole book, Quantum Marketing, is on that, which is the way we have been doing marketing till now is not going to be valid tomorrow. And that tomorrow is not in the distant future. It's actually we're in the cusp between yesterday and tomorrow, literally. So from that perspective, we need to reinvent marketing. We need to reimagine marketing, which is what I call as quantum marketing. And we have to learn the technologies. We have to understand data, new ways of looking at data. And once you get those, you'll be so empowered in terms of inspiring your team, drawing up the strategies that are absolutely robust into the future, and setting your company way ahead of everybody else. Otherwise, if you don't learn, invest time and money to learn at this stage, you'll be left out pretty quickly. You'll become very obsolete. So this is one thing I would say, learning is going to be the single most important thing for the CMOs today to stay ahead of the curve.
Final question, Raja. Do you have a favorite sport or a favorite cricketer?
I have both. My favorite sport, not surprisingly, growing in India is cricket. And as far as the favorites are concerned, I still am very closely passionate about the players I watched when I was growing up, like Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev. And these people are legends. And later on came the Sachin Tendulkar, and even later Dhoni, etc. So it's not like I have one favorite, but I'm pretty passionate about these folks and I absolutely adore them.
Okay. Raja Rajamanar, thank you very much for
Thank
talking
you
to us.
so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Suvenk on X or Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.